The reason for this talk is there are some misconceptions in some popular sermons. Right? For example, uh, some say there is no such thing as pleasure, but clearly from our experiences, we know there is something called pleasure, right? And we say let go of attachment to external things. And then uh, there are some sermons that say impermanence is the cause for all suffering. Right? So we'll take a look at pleasure, right? So I have taken some examples from this book. I have no official affiliation to this author or the book. Right? I've just taken some graphics from this. So we'll say what is pleasure, right? So in order to have pleasure, there should be a vexation, like a void, a difference, you can say, right? So when there's a difference, then there's a vexation. When you come to the neutral state and you're in the neutral state, that is where you have the possibility of having pleasure. Right? Then again, if it surpasses the neutral state, again you don't have that pleasure, right? You're again in a vexed state, a difference. You have a void there. To comprehend this, we'll take an example of using the body, right? So if it's a warm day, right? At point A, you're feeling warm. Right? Let's say you turn on a fan or an air conditioner, and then naturally, slowly, the temperature comes down, and you're in that neutral state, right? The comfortable state for your body. But the more you keep the air conditioner on, now it becomes colder and colder again. You're in that vexed state, right? You're again uncomfortable. So this is an example using the body, right? And the gradient of this vexation is how determines the intensity of the vexation, right? And for example, when you turn on the fan, it might take longer for the temperature to come down, right? But if you use an air conditioner, it might come down in a shorter time. Right? So that's why we give the air conditioner a higher value. Right? Sometimes we like to, if you're in an Asian country, right? Sometimes you like to travel to office to be in the AC, or you try to put on like a solar setup where you can use the air conditioner in a cheaper manner, whatever, right? So that why you give it more value is because it uh, comes to the neutral state faster. Right? So similarly, we'll go to the mind. This was an example with the body. We go to the mind. Right? So for the mind also, it's the same. A vexation means you tell your mind, you look at maybe Instagram posts or you talk to people and you say you create something. This is good, valuable, and substantial. So you create a vexation in your mind, a void, a difference in your mind from the neutral state. Now, let's say you want to go to a particular destination and you want to have one particular type of food, right? So that now you're talking to your friends, you're looking at videos and pictures. Now the vexation is increasing. Slowly it's increasing because you're feeding that attachment there. Right? Mentally you're feeding that attachment. Now the vexation is there. Now the only way you can come to the neutral state is you need to go to that location and have that meal. Right? That is when you have the gratification. Right? So in order to do that, right, you need to earn, you need to plan your leaves, you need to pack, you need to travel, you need to go through all that, right? So that part of things where you do things verbally, mentally, uh, and physically, right? That is not something pleasurable. That is suffering. But you need to do that in order to uh, go to that particular destination and have that particular meal. Right? So let's say you're at that destination, right, and you're having that meal, then simply that act does not give you the gratification. You need to know, you need to somehow acknowledge that okay, now my vexation has now come to a neutral state, not necessarily in those words. So you finally say, finally I came here, I'm having this meal. That feeling needs to come, and that's a mind-made pleasure. Right? And let's say they tell you to stay there for a few months and eat the same dish over and over again. No, then again also you can't. Right now you will say no, I can't. These I'm homesick right now. I would rather prefer home cooked meal. Now again, you have surpassed the neutral state and go on to the other side of the vexation. Right? So at that neutral state, because we are the because through attachment that vexation was there in your mind, right? When you came to the neutral state, you thought about it saying, "Oh, now I'm neutral, right? I got this food. I'm looking at this particular destination. I'm eating this type of food, and then that's a mind-made pleasure, right? So it's not that there is no pleasure. There is a pleasure. It's a mind-made pleasure, and because it's a mind-made pleasure, you need to work to build it. And once you build it, you can't maintain it. There's suffering when it changes as well, right? Either that feeling changes and you have enough of it, or I mean, it's there. Like if let's say you buy something like a car, you might have the car, but you might run out of life. So there are so all these possibilities are there. So that small amount of gratification, there's that enormous amount of drawbacks. You cannot have that gratification without the drawbacks. Think of any gratification you have in your life, right? Any past gratification, any present gratification. You have to work towards building it, and you cannot maintain it like that also. Even if you're a financially independent person or whatever, there's always fixations, and you need to do something in order to feel that gratification, because you need to come to that neutral state and you need to think and build that mentally. You need to build that gratification. It happens when there's a fixation, and then it's not constant, right? It won't keep you content throughout. Right? So that's the definition of gratification, right? So how do you get rid of this? Right? Because that small gratification, if you remember, we spoke about in the last video, it camouflages. It camouflages the drawbacks. Like it hides the suffering because you're so driven to having that, it hides all the suffering. So the only way to relinquish this is you have to know, you have to look at the drawbacks. Right? When you look at the drawbacks, that attachment you have, it's a conceptual attachment in your mind that you have saying that this eating this dish in this particular destination is good, valuable, and substantial. That slowly, that attachment reduces. It's a mental attachment that you have. When that reduces, this drawbacks reduces. So when the drawbacks reduces, you are in a blissful state, right? But then you might ask, that then how do we live without these pressures, right? So to answer that, we uh, take an example from the Margandhi Sutra, right? So let's say it's just a country, right? Let's say there's a country and there's a illness spreading across, right? You have a source in your body and it's infested, like there are worms and all that. It's infested. So the only way you can you can uh, stop that suffering for at least for a short while is to take something hot, maybe like charcoal or something, and burn it, right? So you stop the spread of it, but then it comes, there's another place you need to keep on burning it. But then somebody comes to your village, a doctor, and they give you the medicine for it. Right? Now you take the medicine, and now you no longer need to burn yourself because you're cured. Right? And if you pass a set of people that are that have this disease and they keep on burning it, do you also feel like you need to do that? No, right? Because you're cured. So then there's another example where they say if somebody with this disease is taken and put on a, like a charcoal pit, right? They will do that because it will help them relieve them of the pain. If the healthy person is also now taken and thrown to the charcoal pit, won't he resist it? Right? He will resist it. Why? Because it's painful. So wasn't it painful before? It was painful before also, but there was no choice, right? Because of that the source, the only way to prevent that was to do that because they didn't have the medicine. So creating a vexed mind and treating it is like this, right? You have a soul and you keep on burning it. But three types of people in this world have don't have the vexed mind. Right? They are Buddhas, Pase Buddhas, and Arahats. They don't have the vexed mind, so they don't crave that mind-made pleasure. And in that neutral state, when they're in that neutral state, there's a bliss of not having the vexations, right? That is the highest bliss you can have. That is true contentment because it does not fade away. So just think about it. And when you hear this, right, you might start thinking, okay, this is the suffering in what we take to be as pleasurable. Like this I cannot see for myself unless a Buddha has preached it to the world, right? So your gratitude to the Buddha increases, and for you to understand this, you should have the setting to be able to understand this. Right? You should have the conditions. So one of the main conditions is your the the contribution from your biological mother and father, right? Regardless of did they abandon you or abuse of you or didn't take care of you, whatever, that your biological mother and father has a major role in order for you to be able to listen to this and understand this. Why? Because it's a part to end suffering. Right? So you have immense gratitude to your parents and of course to the Buddha, because without them you are constantly burning yourself to rid yourself and running behind a pleasure which is not uh, consistent. And now stepping aside, looking at the suffering of the pleasurable acts, that's where you have true contentment. Right? If you go back to the initial thing where we started off, right? So there is no such thing as pleasure. No, that's wrong, right? We know experience, we know there is thing as pleasure, but now we know the theory. Okay, there's a vexation. When the vexation comes to a neutral point, we mentally derive that pleasure. So we feel that, but it's a mentally derived one. So that's why you cannot maintain that. And do we let go of attachment to the external things? No. External things are just a supportive thing, right? The actual pleasure is not in the destination or the food that you eat at that particular destination, right? The pleasure is mental, right? The attachment is internal to the mental construct. So not having that mental construct inside and not going to them, not going to the destination and not eating the food, that's not the way to let go, right? You need to look at the drawbacks and then you need to let go of the internal attachment. The attachment is internal to mental constructs. And impermanence is the cause of suffering, right? Is impermanence of everything the cause of suffering? No. Only the impermanence of things you are mentally attached to. Right? That's why there are some people who are attached to wars in certain part of the world, but not in the other regions. Some people are attached to discipline, right? They see something on social media where people have polluted somewhere, then there's a vexation, right? Now there because for them to have gratification, there should be a society which does not pollute the environment. Right? So you're always dependent. Just knowing that this mental gratification, uh, and just knowing that you yourself create this vexation because of the attachment to the mental construct. When there's attachment, there is suffering. That is the result. Right? So when you know that, you might still go to travel places, you might still eat the dish, but you won't be as that vexation. The intensity will reduce. Right? You stop blaming people. You stop conflicting with society, with systems, with people not doing things in a certain way. Just that by looking at you externally, people might not even be able to see that there's a change inside you, but there's you will be on a path to mental peace. Right? So initially, you need to make that conscious decision that I need to know the way these Buddhas have said that I can let go, that I can be a true mental peace. I want to know that that decision has to be made. And once you know that, you have to make another decision saying, now I know this, I want to fulfill that, right? Because that vexation it will reduce systematically. That's another path. You have to walk the path. You have to walk the eightfold paths. So those two decisions are crucial, and the first decision is always crucial. I want to know what these Buddhists have said so that I can have proper contentment. So again, to be content in life, there's only one real bliss: the bliss of no attachment to mental constructs. I hope that was useful and made sense. Thank you for your time.